I love watching day in the life videos by other people just to see how I compare with how they're doing, so to see if I'm teaching my kids enough, to see if I'm spending enough time on learning, to see if I should maybe have a new idea. But I'm really hesitant to make my own day in the life because it's so vulnerable to show exactly how we're doing it. But I'm going to make that leap. I mean, bar none, this has been the most requested video. From the very beginning of this channel, people want to see a day in the life, and I totally get that because I love watching other people's days and seeing exactly how do you take all of these ideas and implement them. So I'm just going to break it down for you into one day, but then also kind of give an overview of the week, because our week has a rhythm to it that is a little bit different than the daily rhythm. So I'm going to describe an ideal day, which means this doesn't look like any day that I actually do, but this is the goal, and I sort of float near this on a regular day. I wake up at about 6 o'clock in the morning and I spend 1 hour doing my wake up routine. And I do have a video on that if you want all the details of that, but really succinctly, that means I'm going to tell myself the truth, spend some time in gratitude, say my prayers, read my scriptures, and think about my day and how I want it to go forward. That takes about an hour to accomplish. And then I also spend some time generally in the morning talking with my husband and just setting up our relationship and nurturing that, because we're at a place right now where he doesn't need to rush off to work. And so we can have that moment to sort of connect with each other in the morning, which is way better for me. That's like our pillow talk, because I'm awake in the morning. I'm not really awake at night. So that's much more convenient for me. So during the time that I'm upstairs getting my day set up, I have my adult son takes my 15-year-old, and they drive for about 20 minutes to a class that he takes first thing in the morning. And they're there from about 6 o'clock in the morning, and they get home about 7:30. So my whole setup of the day is taking place while they're taking care of that. Then they get home at 7:30, and we gather everybody. The whole family gets together. And at this point, we will read our scriptures as a family. We will do our prayers, and we also tell a story as a family. The story is either the story from our personal family history, what we have done as a family, or it's a story about somebody that's a hero that we really respect sometime through history, and we'll talk about why they're so amazing and how we want to be like them. So that's kind of our setup for the day. Then we all sort of split and go different ways. I have several kids who are old enough and hungry enough that they will make breakfast for me. And so they will go take care of that while I exercise and shower, and then a quick cleanup of the kitchen, and we're ready to start at 9 o'clock in the morning. This is the official start of our school day. At this point, I actually feel like the 6 to 9 a.m. can be a little bit stressful. It's really important, the things that we're doing during that wake up routine, but it can be a lot of the heavy stuff falls in that time. We're trying to get the most important things done in the morning. Whereas once 9 o'clock hits, we really kind of relax. So we start with a song, and then we say a prayer and have our theme for the year. And our theme, I'm trying to think of what our theme this year is. We know God loves us, and we share his love by serving others. So then as soon as we've set our theme, we will go through and say, well, how are you doing on service? And in the last 24 hours, they share what they have done to serve somebody else. And it's just a good reminder that service isn't something that happens as a major project. It's something you do constantly, and we need to pay attention to what we are doing to serve other people and kind of up our game, start helping people a little bit more and being aware of how important that is in our lives. But that does not take very long. We do that really pretty quickly. After we've done our report for our service, then we go into our presentations. Now, presentations is not a big deal. It's not something that we definitely are not going to have any recording of this put up on YouTube, because it's a very simple, hey, this is what I've learned, or this is what I've done. This is important to me right now. It can be a performance, like playing a piece on the piano that they've learned, but it's usually just something that they did within the last day that they thought was really cool. And one of the reasons that we do this is from Gordon Newfield. It's a way of gathering our children. It's a way of saying, let's just pause for a second and let everybody have their moment to be the first person in this relationship and to nurture that relationship before I start putting burdens on the relationship, like do your math. So we start with this very comfortable place where everybody gets to share what they're interested in and what they're doing in their lives, and that sets up our day for a much greater chance of success. So then we're done with presentations, and we move on to schedules and goals. The little kids, so my 7 to 12-year-olds, don't really have a ton of say in their schedule. I have a routine that I'll tell you what that is, and we go through our routine. inside each one of the things that they're doing, they get to choose specifically the activity that we do for the day. But I will, at this point, when we're going over schedules, I'll say, hey, we're doing US history today, and then we're going to do this and this and this, and I'll just run through the schedule with them so they know what's coming up, and they can kind of say, oh, I'm really interested in doing this particular activity for that item, and I'll write it down in the day timer. Everybody reports their schedule. This is most helpful for my teenagers, that they are able to have their own day timer and just get clear in their head what they are working on to accomplish during their day. And then after we've done schedules, we have a quick moment of goal setting. We set our goals on Monday morning, and they're pretty easy goals. They're just something that we might want to be working on this week. And we check in every single day. How are you doing on that goal? Just remember that is your goal. Do you need to stick that on your schedule so you can do something about that goal? Or is it, was that too easy? Did you accomplish that Monday morning? Do we need to add to it? Whatever. So we just kind of check in with our goal status and make sure that we are pressing forward on our goals. And then we're done with our opener. At that point, all of the big kids go on their own. Now my oldest is in college, so he's kind of on his own from the very beginning. After we finish our family stuff in the first thing in the morning, he kind of goes off and does his own thing. And then my 18-year-old is on a service mission right now, so he will interact with us sometimes, but a lot of times he'll be out on a project. My 15-year-old, however, this is the point where he goes off and leaves us and takes care of his own studies. From there until pretty much the end of the day, he's independent. That's why it's so important to touch base in the morning and make sure he understands what his schedule is, because from here on out, he's just going to go do what he's going to do. We have what's called little kid time, and honestly, I don't know if we need to keep doing this because I implemented little kid time when I was still spending quite a lot of time with my 15-year-old. He was a little bit younger before, and I was really helping him transition into becoming more of an independent learner. And because so much time was being spent with him, I felt that I was neglecting my little kids. So I set up little kid time in the morning, which is just a half an hour of time that is spent doing things that they really enjoy. I don't know that it is necessary anymore, but we haven't quite cut it out of our schedule. So we start with little kid time, which consistently we will do a quick little scripture story, because a lot of the scriptures we do is over these kids' heads. So I want to have one that's on their level, and then we will rotate around. And this is where the kids get to decide. And so for little kid time, I say we can do bright music, that's B-R-I-T-E, and she has it's Janine Brady, and she has so many great songs, so many wonderful music options that they can dance to or sing to or whatever. And so we can always do that for little kid time. We can do exercise. They have Ninja Now, I think is what it's called, on YouTube. And my kids love doing those exercises. So we can do that for little kid time, or we can play a game. And a lot of times that's going to be either a card game, or we can do charades, or Heads Up is another game that we will play. So the point of little kid time is to really let the kids know that they are important and their education is important, but more to the point, their relationship with me is important. I just want to stop and make sure they understand that before we get into the meat of learning, they matter to me, and I'm going to take the time to play with them so that they can really enjoy that. And at this age, playing is learning. So it's not like we've paused our learning experience. They are still learning, but it's putting the focus on the most important things, which is the relationship. And so we start our morning really focused on the relationship. After we do little kid time, we move on to our Inspire loop. And our Inspire loop this year has, I'm not sure how many things on it. There's math fun, crafts, fairy tales, character studies, logic, Mad Libs, and poetry. And so every day we will do one of those. And inside each of those, we have different options, different books, different things that we can do inside each of those. So when I set up the schedule in the morning, I will look at where we are on the loop. And that just basically means I look and I see which one we did the last time we had school, and then we'll do the next one on the loop. So if I say, okay, we happen to be doing character stories today, I will list out for them. That is coming out of the Storytime book, or we can have some of the Great Lives, or we can do stories that teach values, or a story out of the My Book House. What do you guys want to do? They will choose, because any one of those is going to be great for me. I cannot possibly lose here. So they choose what they're interested in. I will read them a story from that, and that is the Inspire loop. And it really takes only 15 to 20 minutes. We're pretty fast on that. If it happens to be craft, then they get to choose. You know, do you want to do clay or diamond painting, or paint by stickers, or sketching, or do you want to work with beads? There are several different things that we have that are just available, and I have them all in a bin that's ready to go. They get to choose that, and we get to play that for 15 to 20 minutes. That is our inspiration loop. At that point, we move on to our foundation loop. And our foundation loop has 4 things on it. I should probably tell you, here's how a loop works. A loop works, you do one thing on the loop, and then the next time you come around to school, you do the next thing on the loop, and you just work your way down the list of things to do. This allows you to have days where you go on a field trip, or somebody was sick, or you had a doctor's appointment or whatever, and you don't get off track. You just kind of skip that day, but the next day you pop back onto the next item on the loop. And so you don't get locked into every Tuesday we have to be doing history. You're able to flex and flow with the way that life really works when it comes to homeschooling. So our foundation loop has 4 items on it. We've got science, US history, world history, and constitution. And so I'm going to do one of these each day, not all of them, but I will spend an hour to maybe even an hour and a half on this subject. It just really depends on how interested they are in the story and how long the craft or project or whatever it is takes to do it. But this is the bulk of what happens. This is where the learning happens during the day. So if we are doing science, we will do probably 3 lessons. We might watch some videos that are attached to that. Homeschool in the Woods has a lot of videos that go with the Berrien Builders, which is what we're using this year. So I love her stuff. That's been really amazing to be able to use that. On US history, we will do some stories from American History Stories, and then I will get out my activity book from the Story of the World. And there are so many different activities that are built into there. It does take a little bit of effort to figure out where that lines up with where we're reading in the American History Stories, but wherever it lines up, we just find an activity to go with that. Or alternately, I will find an activity that works from Marlene Peterson's Libraries of Hope. She has a lot of activities that work with different time periods that we're studying. So whatever, we'll just do some sort of activity with it. Maybe that's a coloring page, maybe that's a game that we play. It's just whatever activity is coming up with that and that works for that day. Then we move on to everybody's individual studies. So my 12-year-old, I don't work with him on reading anymore. He's golden, he knows how to read, he reads a lot. So he's off, he does his own reading, but with my 7-year-old and my 9-year-old, we will switch. One day we will do math and one day we will do reading. So with my 12-year-old, he does math every single day. And so depending on how old they are, depends how long they spend on this. If they're very young, so my 7-year-old, he does math as long as he enjoys it up to 15 minutes. And that's it. And he's really good at it and he just flies through it and it's not a problem. I do not push it because I don't want him to feel like math is something that's very difficult. So wherever he is on math, we are plugging along and doing really well on that. My 9-year-old, kind of the same thing. She really loves math. She actually is to the point where she really loves reading as well. She's dyslexic, so it took a while to get to where she really enjoys it, but she does enjoy reading now. And so we spend with her almost, sometimes even a half an hour I will spend with her, and I have to shut it down and say, you've done enough now, because she's so excited to press forward, but I don't want her to push past when it's enjoyable just because she feels like she needs to. So I do try to limit how much they do in this moment. If they want to read a book later during the day, absolutely do that. But this is just me sitting with them and making sure that they're pronouncing things right and checking their math and making sure they understand all of those concepts. So I will have a half an hour set aside to do either math or reading, and I will bounce between my 2 little kids, and my 12-year-old will do it on his own, and he'll just check in with me if he has any problems that he can't solve on his own. And we finish it out with a family read, and I will read to them for an hour. I've actually got a video on all of the different books that we're doing for family read this year. And so as we start the family read, they each have to write a page of copywork. And so that they just kind of get that done at the beginning of while I'm reading to them. And as soon as we finish up with that, or they finish up with their individual writing, then they can play with all sorts of different toys that we have. I'm making another video. Sorry, all these references to other videos, but I do have another video that I'm making on the different types of toys that they play with while I read to them, but they're just very hands-on. We're talking Legos, Connects, building blocks, stuff like that. Something that you can use your hands in, but keep your mind available still to be listening to me while I'm reading. And that is really the end of the school day. And we finish around lunchtime, just depends on when we start. Sometimes we can push it as far as 1:30 in the afternoon, just sometimes we start late. But we want to wrap it up as soon as we're done. We have lunch, and then the rest of the afternoon, they are free to do whatever they want. And often I will find my kids either reading, sometimes doing math on their own, but a lot of times processing what they've already heard. They will be playing games that are based on the stories that we read today. They'll be teaching each other what I've already taught them. I've caught my 12-year-old telling my his younger siblings, hey, this story, blah, blah, blah. And I thought they were there. But it's just important that they get to have that time to process everything that they've learned and really let it sink in and settle in. And they also just play. You know, the afternoons are also times to just enjoy each other's company and play with each other and be imaginative and have a lot of fun. So that is our regular schedule. We do that schedule 3 days a week pretty consistently. Then we have 2 additional days where we do something completely different. And the first one is project learning. And I usually make my own projects. I will build my own projects. So this year, it turns out that I just ran out of time and energy, couldn't pull it off. And so I bought some projects and they have been amazing. I have absolutely loved these projects. They have been so awesome because all the kids get these cards and they pick out the cards and choose whatever looks interesting to them. And then based on the card, I will go look through the PDF they gave me, and the PDF says, okay, that card is this particular activity or craft or video or story or whatever, and we will spend time watching videos on it and then doing the activity associated with it. And I love it, and it takes a couple of hours and the kids absolutely love it. This year we've already made kites for, we're doing China as the project that we're working on right now. And so we've made some very large kites and out of straws and paper. And we have also made some clay figurines for the terracotta people that they dug up. So we made our own clay people for that. I can't even remember all the things that we've done for this. Karate, we did some stuff on karate. They watched a lot of Jackie Chan and all of his videos and how you do that type of karate on film versus how you're going to do it in real life. Just a lot of fascinating things. And so we will spend one day, we'll just do the opener right up to the inspiration loop, and then we jump into the project. And there's also a story that I will be reading to them for the project, and that just fluctuates whatever we're reading for that project. For China, we happen to be reading some Magic Treehouse books about the Dragon King, and I think Day with the Pandas, something like that. And so I will read to them for a little bit. We will do the activity for an hour to 2 hours, and that is what we do that day. That's how we spend that day. This is absolutely my daughter's favorite day. She looks forward to this day more than any other day of the whole week because she loves doing hands-on stuff. She loves projects, and the autonomy of being able to choose what you're doing is also super powerful. So they love that day. And then our last day, Friday, we alternate between having a service project that we do, which are really, really simple service projects, and on the off day, then we will go on a field trip. And sometimes those field trips are associated with what we're studying, and sometimes they're just cool things that happen to be going on around here. But that is definitely my 12-year-old's favorite day. He looks forward to the day when we get to get out of the house and go try something new and discover something new. None of my kids so far have said that the service projects are their absolute favorite day of the month or of the week, but we're just doing them because that's our theme for this year, is that we're working on serving others. And so we want to have these opportunities to serve others so that they can have some personal evidence in their life that this is good and it's important, and it's we actually can share love by serving others. So every other week we try to have a service project. And like I say, they're super tiny. We're talking about making little notes that they stick in library books that are encouraging notes for other people, or painting rocks that have encouraging words on them and then going and planting them somewhere around the city. We made little boxes to give to the Ronald McDonald House, little gifts that we can give to them. Little things. We're not doing big, enormous, let's travel to Mexico, do big things. They're just little, but they are very powerful, and they do take up a day. It takes a while to get everything together and make sure that I have all this stuff and we can go forward and accomplish our service project. So that is a day in the life and a week in the life of how we do homeschool. I hope that is helpful. However you're doing homeschool, whether it looks completely different from how we do it, or if it's pretty close, or it doesn't even matter. You are doing things that are really, really important. Being a mom really matters, and you're doing a much better job than you think you are. I will catch you on the next one. Thanks.